I'm 33 and female. When I was 3 years old, after bouncing between foster care and my biological mom, social services gave her 3 chances with me and then removed me permanently. All her prior children were removed also. I was adopted by my foster family. They comprise of my adoptive mom, who is 76, my adoptive dad, who is 72, and they have 2 older biological children, who we will call my adoptive sister, who is 44, and my adoptive brother, who is 48. My adoptive sister was 14 when I was adopted, and my adoptive brother was 18 and about to move out of the house. My adoptive parents also took on a long-term foster child when I was 5, who was a 6-month-old baby at the time. They have kept him all the way through to adulthood and are now his adult carers. He has global delay and autism and is nonverbal, doubly incontinent, and is quite difficult to manage. He is 28 now. We'll call him my foster brother on a technicality, even though he's the most like my own sibling out of any of them. I'll start by saying when I was a child, I showed signs of attachment issues and probably had additional needs. These were ignored, however, even when I told my adoptive mom one day that I was hearing voices, and every issue was just constantly put as a mark against my character and bad behavior. My adoptive mom would get so angry at me sometimes when I would disagree with her about something. I always read a lot and would speak up if I thought any of them were wrong about something. In hindsight, I think this was neurodivergence. She would hit me, sometimes even with whatever object was in her hand. All of them would tell me to shut up and mock me. Every time I opened my mouth, one of them would say, blah, 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 I read it in a book or something like that. It was unbearable to be around them, and I would spend a lot of time outside or shut in my room. But this was also seen as unacceptable, and I would get told off for doing these things. I was constantly harassed for what I was eating or not eating, how long I was in the shower. They would unlock the door of the bathroom from the outside by using a knife or screwdriver, and just walk in if I was longer than 20 minutes in the bathroom, which used to mortify me, even though the house had 2 toilets. One Christmas, I remember we were lightheartedly teasing my adoptive mom about my adoptive brother being her favorite, or her golden boy, and she shouted, "I love both my children!" I sat there totally speechless and then left the table to go and cry in the bathroom. My adoptive mom then told me I was ruining Christmas. When I was a teenager, my adoptive mom and adoptive dad bought a house in France. I was an excellent student at the time and had already received an award that year for my French. They used me constantly to speak French for them during the notarizing of their new holiday home. They still do not speak French today, 20 years later. They put an awkward, shy teenager in constantly mortifying positions, such as throwing dinner parties for the French neighbors and forcing me to be the only point of translation between them and the neighbors. Then, during times when we had no company, they would speak to me like shoot and not see the irony of doing that, considering how hard they were making me work mentally and emotionally. Their biological children cannot speak a word of French between them. None of them ever thanked me. They were entitled to any of my abilities/qualities that they saw as good or useful, and endlessly critical of anything they didn't like. My adoptive mom would leave me to watch my foster brother for hours and hours at a time, even though he is extremely difficult to manage, and I was a literal child. If I complained and said I was bored or that he kept hitting me or scratching me, he doesn't know he's doing it. It's part of his condition. She would shout at me, and I would worry she was going to get so angry and hit me. Anytime I spoke up about the way they were treating me, my adoptive dad would say, "I can't wait for you to move out when you're 16. We are sick of you." In our home country, when my adoptive dad's brother and his wife would come to visit, I would hear them downstairs talking about how awful I was, and that I wouldn't behave no matter what they did, and that I was a lost cause. I cried myself to sleep a lot of nights. I was never allowed to freely discuss my adoption, and I would get told off if I told people about it. They made me feel like my origins were some dirty secret. A lot of my friends, once we became adults, were shocked to discover the truth of what was going on in my house. Now, as an adult, the treatment between their biological children and me only seems more and more disparate. My adoptive sister is a menace socially. She throws literal tantrums, talks to everyone like shoot, And yet somehow my adoptive parents never say a word to her about her behavior, even when it is directed towards them. She didn't call my adoptive brother more than twice when his wife was dying. And she never asks anything about anyone else unless she's trying to pick a fight. She only calls my adoptive brother when she wants advice about her car. It's unbearable. I have no contact with her as of this year. She threw her son out of the house when he was at his lowest, in a hurtful relationship, and then verbally abused the rest of us, including my adoptive mom and adoptive dad, when we tried to help him get somewhere to live. My adoptive brother has a good heart deep down and wants everyone to be okay. But he won't challenge anyone or stick up for me, and he is the golden child. He also won't listen when he is wrong about something, and is softly misogynistic at times. As I'm writing this, I am at the family holiday home in France. I agreed to come on holiday with my adoptive brother to see our parents. I've been trying to be available to him since his wife died for company. They all talk over me constantly. I can hardly speak without being interrupted. My adoptive dad and adoptive mom are hiding from my adoptive brother that they smoke, even though I've told them multiple times that he knows he can smell it. They have no problem smoking in front of me, though, and all over me in the car when my adoptive brother isn't there as well, which I find insulting because it seems they care about what he thinks, but not what I think. I also hate cigarette smoke and had to put up with it throughout my childhood, and I don't want to stink of it now. My adoptive mom has also slipped back into old habits of leaving me to watch my foster brother for hours at a time, and acting irritated or moody if I even dare to suggest that I want to do something else with my hard-earned holiday. I love my foster brother, but I did not choose to take him on, and this is the only holiday I'll have this year. My adoptive brother enjoys DIY. Despite him selling me this idea of us going out and seeing different French towns, cafes, and markets, we haven't gone anywhere so far except one restaurant and a supermarket. When he is going around the house fixing things, I end up sat with my foster brother watching him because my adoptive mom leaves him with me when I'm trying to read outside or something, and then disappears into the house. I have challenged her a couple of times when she has done this, and she always acts like I'm being ridiculous, and she's just going indoors for XYZ small thing, but then she just leaves me. Once she does this, I then can't go anywhere, because if my foster brother is left to his own devices unsupervised, he will really hurt himself or maybe ingest something he shouldn't, etc. He's basically like a 2-year-old in an adult's body, bless him, but he's much bigger, a 28-year-old man's body. So I can't simply pick him up and walk into the house. Another example of disrespect on this holiday is that my adoptive dad remarked in the car while smoking all over me that we had left really early to go to this particular thing. I piped up and said, yes, I said it was really early, but no one was listening to me. And he snapped at me, yeah? Well, that's life. He would under no circumstances speak to my adoptive brother like that, or my adoptive sister. That type of stuff is only for me. When we got back to the house, I went into my room to lay down. I felt sad and lonely and fed up that I came here. I always hope it will be different with them, but it never is. Then, our French neighbor came over asking for something. I knew even though my adoptive dad had been super rude to me in the car, he would instantly expect my help. So I closed my eyes in my bed and just acted like I was asleep. He knocked. Then he banged on the door. Then he let himself into my room. I'm a 33-year-old woman, and I'm still not allowed privacy, and said my name loudly. In my mind, I was thinking, frick you. If you have the balls to come over here and shake me awake, go ahead. But he didn't. He closed the door and walked out. I laid there quiet as a mouse for hours waiting for them to give up, and eventually she did leave. When I got up and went to the bathroom, after I was sure she was gone, he started trying to send me on some guilt trip. Oh, the neighbor was here and she needed something, and I couldn't quite make out what she was saying because you were asleep. But he won't just say sorry, and then I would happily help him. My questions are, what can I do to keep my sanity? I have to stay here until Friday, 3 more days, and honestly, when I say I'm struggling to even get up in the morning and show my face to these people, I mean it. I won't come here again. Consider this my lesson learned. Also, what should I do long term? Should I go no contact? I feel so unloved and worthless. Telling them that sort of thing doesn't even seem to move them at all. Thank you for reading and in advance for your help. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. First off, I am so sorry that your family is treating you so poorly. I think that going no contact is an excellent idea. Also, I'm not sure what's available to you where you are, but please think about getting some therapy to deal with all of the difficulties you've been faced with, and to help you be strong in the future, to make sure that you only allow those who are best for you in your inner circle. There is nothing wrong with you, and I think it would be great to have an impartial person help you see that. You are not worthless. They want you to feel that way so that you'll be obligated to serve their needs. Think of it as 3 days of obligation, knowing that after that, you'll be free and living your best life. Big hugs to you. You sound like a lovely and caring person. Comment 2. If you can leave for home early, please do so. If you can't, just start leaving the house all day, every day. Do you permanently live with them? Can you get your own place, even if it's just renting a room from someone? You need to get away from them, and honestly, you need to cut contact. I'm not seeing anything that gives good enough reason to stay in contact. Now, for the update, thank you for all the comments on my last post. So, after my last update, things took a turn I wasn't expecting. I was trying to keep my head down and just get through the holiday, but it seems like every time I try to avoid conflict, it finds me anyway. 3 days ago, my adoptive brother decided to tackle a big DIY project in the house. He wanted to fix the leaky roof, which sounded like a good idea at first. But then he roped me into helping him, even though I have no experience with that kind of work. I tried to tell him I wasn't comfortable with it, but he insisted, saying it would be a good bonding experience. While we were up on the roof, I made a mistake. I accidentally stepped on a weak spot and fell through, landing in the attic. I wasn't seriously hurt, but I did sprain my ankle pretty badly. My adoptive brother was furious, not because I got hurt, but because I ruined his project. He didn't even ask if I was okay. Instead, he started yelling at me about how careless I was, and how now he had even more work to do. My adoptive mom and dad came running when they heard the commotion, but instead of being concerned, they joined in on berating me. It was like I was a child again, being blamed for everything that went wrong. The fallout from this incident has been intense. My adoptive brother has been giving me the silent treatment, which is almost worse than the yelling. My adoptive mom has been making passive-aggressive comments about how I always manage to mess things up. And my adoptive dad has been avoiding me altogether. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, trying to avoid setting anyone off. My foster brother, of course, is oblivious to all of this, but even he seems more agitated than usual, probably picking up on the tension in the house. I've been spending most of my time in my room, trying to stay out of everyone's way, but even that isn't enough. Yesterday, my adoptive mom barged in without knocking, demanding that I help her with my foster brother. I tried to explain that I needed to rest my ankle, but she wouldn't hear it. She accused me of being lazy and selfish, and when I finally hobbled downstairs to help, she acted like she was doing me a favor by letting me sit with him while she went out to run errands. This whole situation has brought up a lot of old feelings and memories. I remember when I was a teenager, and they would leave me to watch my foster brother for hours on end. I felt so trapped and helpless back then, and I feel the same way now. It's like nothing has changed. They still see me as the problem child, the one who can't do anything right. And no matter how hard I try to prove myself, it's never enough. One thing that has become painfully clear to me is that my adoptive family will never change. They will always see me as an outsider, someone who doesn't quite belong. And I think a part of me has always known that, but I kept hoping that things would get better, that they would see me for who I really am and not just the mistakes I've made. But after this week, I don't think that's possible. I've been thinking a lot about my biological mom and the life I might have had if things had been different. I know she wasn't capable of taking care of me, but I can't help but wonder if I would have been better off with her. At least then, I wouldn't have had to deal with the constant feeling of being unwanted and unloved. I don't know if that's true, but it's hard not to think about it when I'm feeling so low. As for my adoptive sister, she's been her usual self, completely oblivious to everything that's going on. She called a couple of times, but only to complain about her own problems. She didn't even ask how I was doing or if I needed anything. It's like she lives in her own little world where no one else matters. And I guess that's just who she is, but it still hurts. I don't know what to do long term. Part of me wants to go no contact and just cut them out of my life completely. But another part of me feels guilty for even thinking that. They did take me in when no one else would, and I feel like I owe them something for that. But at what cost? My sanity? My self-worth? I don't know if it's worth it anymore. For now, I'm just trying to get through the next few days. I've been looking up flights and trying to figure out the earliest I can leave without causing too much of a scene. I don't want to be here any longer than I have to be, but I also don't want to make things worse by leaving abruptly. It's a delicate balance, and I'm not sure how to navigate it. Thank you for reading and for any advice you can offer. Aita for giving a cheating coworker another chance. After he lied about his past. I've been talking to a guy for 3 months and seeing each other, like going on dates for almost 2 months. We work together, so sometimes we will see each other, but it's not all the time or every day. He started messaging me, and after a few weeks, we hung out. The second date was about a week later, where we just walked around, got some dinner, and sat in the car and talked. On this date, I went over some things I'm looking for in a guy, but it was pretty general. The third date, we had a similar date to the second, but spoke a little more in depth about some of my boundaries and things we were both looking for in a relationship. We hit it off, and he pretty much admitted I would be the type of girl he would want to date. We spoke about not wanting to talk sleep with people, and said we were only focusing on each other. The next day, we saw each other again before I left to go home. A week later, we had another date where I wanted to confirm we were exclusive. And he agreed, and from that point, feelings have only increased. Yesterday, I found out that he had slept with someone between our 4th and 5th time seeing each other. It was a girl he used to regularly just sleep with before we started seeing each other. Someone he knew he didn't want anything with. It's been almost 3 months since we started chatting, and he did this just under a month from our first date. When he told me, he didn't bring it up as if he needed to admit something. He said he knew after that it was wrong because of how he felt, and that he cut it all off with her from that point, and knew he only wanted to focus on me. Technically, we had spoken about only seeing each other, but I guess it wasn't exactly exclusive, but I don't know. He said he's always seen me as someone he wanted more with, but also wasn't certain at this point. But since then, his feelings have only progressed, saying I'm the only person he's ever thought of marrying or having a family with. He said he knows it was wrong, but didn't see it as cheating, as we were only new at seeing each other, but still knows it was wrong. He genuinely is a lovely person, and I feel really aligned with a lot of things that could make him a great partner. But I feel so betrayed. We hadn't had intimacy, and still haven't. I wanted to wait until we were in a relationship. We also hadn't hugged or kissed at this point, but I definitely feel we had been over a lot on an emotional level. When we spoke about it, I expressed how disappointed I was, and he knew I was mad. I left the conversation pretty much ending it, and we haven't spoken since. Did I do the right thing, or could it have really been a big mistake that he could come back from? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Talking about marrying or having a family after 5 dates is a red flag. Saying you're the only one is a red flag. It is not lovely. It might be lovely after a year or two. Saying you're exclusive, then sleeping with someone else, is a red flag. Some part of him does at least feel bad, at least bad enough to confess to you. But an equally large part of him wants to manipulate you and tell you it was actually an act of love for him to have experienced such a deepening of his commitment to you. And after all, you weren't really exclusive, even though you agreed not to see other people. Right, you're not missing out. Move on. Comment 2. We had spoken about not seeing or sleeping with anyone else, which we both said we didn't want to, but I guess I'm not sure if it was clarified that we weren't going to in the future. No, this is stupid as heck. Ordinarily, at 3 weeks / 2 or 3 dates, feeling it out with others is not a problem. But if you agreed to be exclusive and he banged anyway, because it's not technically cheating, since you're not technically together, then he's shifty and has some growing up to do at the absolute least. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks since I last updated you. After I found out about him sleeping with someone else, I was really torn. I felt betrayed and didn't know if I could trust him again. I decided to take some time to think things over and figure out what I really wanted. During this time, I didn't reach out to him, and he didn't contact me either. It was a tough period of silence, but it gave me some space to reflect. A few days into my self-imposed break, I ran into him at work. It was awkward, to say the least. We exchanged polite greetings, but it was clear that there was a lot left unsaid. Later that day, he sent me a message asking if we could talk. I agreed, but I was still unsure of what I wanted to say or hear from him. When we met up, he was visibly nervous. He started by apologizing again and explained that he had been confused about his feelings at the time. He admitted that he had made a mistake and that he regretted it deeply. He said he understood if I couldn't forgive him, but he wanted to be honest about everything. That's when he dropped a bombshell. He had a secret that he hadn't told me before. He revealed that he had been married before. It was a short-lived marriage that ended in a messy divorce. He said that the experience had left him wary of relationships and commitment, which is why he had been hesitant to fully commit to me at first. He explained that sleeping with the other girl was a way for him to sabotage what we had, because he was scared of getting hurt again. Hearing this was a lot to take in. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a bit of empathy. I asked him why he hadn't told me about his past marriage sooner. He said he was afraid it would scare me away, and that he wanted to wait until he was sure about us before sharing something so personal. This made me question his honesty and transparency. If he could hide something this significant, what else was he hiding? We talked for hours that night. He opened up about his fears and insecurities, and I shared mine. It was a raw and emotional conversation, but it felt necessary. By the end of it, I still didn't know if I could trust him completely, but I appreciated his honesty. I told him I needed more time to think and that I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. Over the next few days, I found myself thinking a lot about my own past and how it had shaped my views on relationships. I remembered a time when I was in a similar situation. I had been dating someone who I thought was perfect for me, but he ended up cheating on me. It took me a long time to get over that betrayal, and I realized that I had been carrying that baggage into my current relationship. This made me wonder if I was being too harsh on him because of my past experiences. I decided to talk to a close friend about everything that had happened. She gave me some valuable advice and helped me see things from a different perspective. She reminded me that everyone makes mistakes and that it's important to look at the bigger picture. She also pointed out that he had been honest with me, even if it was late, and that he seemed genuinely remorseful. With all this in mind, I decided to give him another chance. We met up again, and I told him that I was willing to try and move past this, but it would take time and effort from both of us. He agreed and promised to be more open and honest with me moving forward. We set some new boundaries and agreed to work on building trust again. Since then, things have been slowly improving. We've been spending more time together and having deeper conversations about our future. He's been making an effort to show me that he's committed to our relationship, and I've been trying to let go of my doubts and insecurities. It's not easy, but I feel like we're making progress. One thing that has helped is that we've started going to couples therapy. It's been a great way for us to communicate more effectively and address any lingering issues. The therapist has given us some useful tools and techniques to strengthen our relationship. It's still early days, but I feel hopeful about where we're headed. In the midst of all this, I also learned more about his past and why his previous marriage ended. It turns out that his ex-wife had cheated on him, which explained a lot about his fears and trust issues. Knowing this made me understand him better and gave me more empathy for his situation. It also made me realize that we both had a lot of healing to do, and that we could support each other through it. So that's where things stand right now. We're taking things one day at a time and trying to rebuild our relationship on a stronger foundation. It's been a challenging journey, but I feel like we're both committed to making it work. Only time will tell if we can fully move past this, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Thanks for reading. Aita for telling my mom to stop stealing my savings and do her own chores. I've just turned 18 a little over a month or so, and I've gotten myself a nice deal taking IT classes from home. I've been working my butt off to learn and understand the classes with the rest of my peers, and my parents constantly forget that I'm even taking these classes. They don't seem to understand that I have my own things that I personally need to be responsible for, and I can't just drop everything to do their chores for them. Just yesterday, I had accidentally forgotten that my mother asked me to put her clothes in the dryer, so she had clean clothes for work. I had just come upstairs from installing and testing some programs on my laptop a few hours later, and I needed to eat, and she yelled at me and made me feel terrible for forgetting something that I felt she could have done herself. Turns out she had asked me that night to put them in the dryer again, and I hadn't heard her say it. Next day, today, she yells at me again and tells me that she's disappointed, and I need to be responsible. The thing is that I am being responsible, just responsible for myself and the things I need to do to succeed. I don't know how to explain to her that I have my own things I need to worry about now, and that her little chores just aren't my priority anymore, especially with multiple other people in the house who do nothing. I don't feel like getting that same, "You're under my roof, you do what I say," or "I work this many hours for you and all I ask for is this" speech over and over again, and have to keep my tail tucked between my legs to appease her after she blows up at me. I'm taking online classes to get a new job, and my mom constantly wants me to do her chores for her, but I have work I have to focus on now. Her chores aren't my priority anymore, and I don't know how to explain this to her without her blowing up at me. I understand that she works a lot, but it's not my priority to do these things for her when I have my own future career to worry about. To add, since I've been asked to add this and everyone keeps assuming it, I do chores. I'm not upset at the fact that I have to do chores. I do most of the chores in my household, aside from my mother. I cook for my family, household of 7 including me. I take care of my 2 youngest siblings, 1 year and 5 years. I clean the house and the bathrooms. I leave to pick my other siblings up. I go get groceries when we're low on them and more. I do these chores without being asked. Just a few days ago, I had to fix the garage door because no one could figure it out. My mom will constantly let me know how appreciative she is for it, but when I started taking classes, I wanted to focus on that more. I can't dedicate myself to chores like I used to because now I've got things I have to do. I want to be successful, but I can't keep running around doing all these chores and doing my work at the same time. I need some kind of balance, but when my mom gets upset at me for forgetting a chore, it makes me feel terrible and like I need to do extra to make up for it, but I just don't have the time anymore. I have a lot of things going on, and all I want is some kind of balance. No, I don't want to move out. No, I'm not being an entitled jerk. And I'm not being a lazy bum, just sitting around at home and doing no chores. I know I do more than anyone else besides my mom, and I just want someone to take some of that weight so I can have some time for my studies. That's all I ask for. I pull my weight, and it seems like the rest of my family lags behind and assumes that I'll do the bulk of the work. Sorry for the rant, but it's frustrating having people fill in the blanks of my life for me and doing it wrong. I know I didn't explain myself properly to begin with, but everyone just assumed the worst of me. Guess that's Reddit. Almost forgot. I see a lot of people saying that I've been parentified by my mom, and I feel like that's what's happening. When I was little and my mom was a single mom of 3, including me, I had to take on the parent role while she was away from my younger brothers. Now that there's another parent figure in the house, I still find myself being told to do his job and even hers sometimes. And the laundry example was me trying to explain that I couldn't just stop my work to go do it that second. After that, I had forgotten while doing my work because the work was on my mind at the time. Yeah, that was my fault, but if it really only takes a few seconds, how come she couldn't have just got it done there? Why not anyone else in the house? Nobody was doing anything that day but me. If my mom were doing something, I'd be watching the youngest kids while she did it, because that's how it works in our household. I'm always the babysitter. I wouldn't have minded doing it if it wasn't while I was busy. I wouldn't have minded it if it weren't for the fact that nobody else was doing anything. I mean, I could hear my brothers playing on their PlayStation 4 through the walls for crying out loud, and my mom knew I had work to do. But I'm not responsible, and I'm a disappointment in her words, because I forgot to do one chore that, according to you all, would have also taken her seconds to do as well. But I'm the entitled brat, not my siblings and stepdad, who sit around doing nothing and have attitude when asked to do something simple. They ask for expensive things and never give back in return as far as simple chores. But it's me who's entitled, apparently, and I keep seeing people asking if I pay bills or rent or anything, and I might as well be with how much she takes out of my savings for bills and whatnot. That's a separate issue, but I really need to talk to her about getting myself my own bank account, separate from her, so she quits taking my saved up money. Problem is, I feel like we won't be able to pay for bills if I take my money from her. but I've been saving it for a reason, and she just keeps taking it all. She doesn't even pay it back. She used to at first, and then she just stopped, and when I ask about it, I'm the bad person, apparently. I don't know what to do in that situation. I'll save it for another post, I suppose. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. These chores are your responsibility more than ever now. You're 18 years old and not guaranteed a place to live or food to eat. If you don't like paying in kind by helping out at home, move out. You can meet her in the middle by suggesting a list of chores that you will take care of each week by an agreed-upon deadline. The list doesn't have to include laundry if you're taking care of other things like cleaning bathrooms or cooking. Comment 2. Time to move out. While you live at home as part of the price of living there, you need to contribute to the chores. That includes occasionally switching the laundry over. When you move out, you will only have to do your own chores, but you will have to do all of them. And that's going to be a kick in the pants. You are going to look back at this post and shake your head. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, a lot has happened in the past 3 months. My Aita classes have been going well, but the situation at home has only gotten more complicated. My mom's demands haven't lessened, and it's been a constant struggle to balance my responsibilities. About a month ago, I finally decided to have a serious talk with her about my workload. I explained how much time my classes were taking and how I needed to focus on them to secure a better future for myself. She seemed to understand at first, but old habits die hard. One evening, I was deep into a coding assignment when my mom burst into my room, furious that I hadn't taken out the trash. I tried to explain that I was in the middle of something important, but she wouldn't hear it. She went on about how everyone in the house had their roles and how I was failing at mine. It was frustrating because I knew she was right to some extent, but I also felt like she wasn't seeing the bigger picture. The next day, I decided to take a different approach. I sat down with my stepdad and siblings and laid out a chore schedule. I thought if everyone had specific tasks, it would take some of the pressure off me. My stepdad was surprisingly supportive, but my siblings were less enthusiastic. They grumbled and complained, but eventually they agreed to give it a try. For a while, things seemed to improve. My siblings started doing their chores, and I had more time to focus on my studies. But then, about 2 weeks ago, my mom lost her job. She was devastated, and the atmosphere at home became tense. She started leaning on me even more, asking me to help her with job applications and household tasks. I felt torn between helping her and keeping up with my classes. One night, after a particularly heated argument about the laundry, my mom broke down in tears. She confessed that she felt like she was losing control of everything and that she was scared about the future. It was a side of her I hadn't seen before, and it made me realize how much pressure she was under. I promised her I would help as much as I could, but I also needed her to understand my situation. In the midst of all this, I got an offer for an internship at a local tech company. It was a huge opportunity, but it meant I would have even less time for chores. I was excited, but also anxious about how my mom would react. When I told her, she was happy for me, but also worried about how we would manage everything. She asked if I could decline the offer and focus on helping her until she found a new job. This put me in a difficult position. I wanted to support her, but I also knew this internship was crucial for my career. I spent the next few days weighing my options. I talked to my stepdad, who suggested I take the internship and assured me he would help out more around the house. My siblings, however, were indifferent and continued to slack off on their chores. I felt like I was being pulled in different directions, and it was hard to see a clear path forward. Then, last week, something unexpected happened. My mom got a call from an old friend who offered her a job at their company. It wasn't as high-paying as her previous job, but it was something. She was overjoyed and immediately accepted the offer. This took a lot of the pressure off me, and I felt a sense of relief. With my mom back at work, I decided to take the internship. It started a few days ago, and so far, it's been a great experience. I'm learning a lot and making valuable connections. My stepdad has been true to his word and has taken on more responsibilities at home. My siblings are still a work in progress, but at least they're doing more than before. Looking back, I realize how much this whole situation has tested my loyalties. I love my family and want to support them, but I also need to prioritize my future. It's been a delicate balance, and there have been times when I've felt like I was failing at both. but I think we're finally finding a way to make it work. One thing that has become clear is that my mom and I need to communicate better. We've had some honest conversations recently, and I think we're starting to understand each other more. She knows how important my studies and career are to me, and I understand the pressures she's facing. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.